All right. Enough. Let's just get started. So for those who are not here, let me introduce the speaker, Francis. We've been personal friends for a while. He has like a lot of years of experience in coding. I think maybe more than 6 years in programming, and also like a lot of years of experience in more than 5 year experience in mobile development. He currently works for a fintech and also a chat company called BlinkPay and also BlinkChat, where he works on social media interactions between users and also facilitates payments on the platform. So, with no further ado, let me hand it over to Francis. So, you will lead us on today's webinar on how to become a mobile developer. Over to you, Francis.
All right, thanks, Emeka. So first, let me share my screen. All right, so before I begin, I think I prefer to know the audience, so I'll know if I can go deep with some technical terms. So I would like to kind of just like a raise of hand, if you guys are experienced with if you guys are into tech, like if you guys know programming. So let me just start from there. Let me know how deep. So let me see. All right. All right, no problem. So I'll try and take it very careful so that it won't be so complex and so it won't be so much technical terms. So no problem. So let's start. So how to become a mobile developer. So uh, I'm going to go through this as as a as a as let's say like an entrepreneur or someone that wants to develop an application themselves. So I'm going to go into this discussion as not much of programming terms, but I'm going to show some code so that you understand how everything goes, you can how the development process actually goes through. So, but I'm going to kind of lead you through how to start and then how to deploy your project. That's just my main focus. Me personally, I've also had some experiences when I create an application and I found out that that application is not needed by any person, so it's not solving any problem. So I'm going to go through that, so you don't make that same kind of mistake. So first, I would like to start I would like to start like my own journey, like before I started off for this program. I think I remember the first time I actually it's not actually hard. It's not hard at all. So the first time I remember, I don't know how many of you guys had this small phones that you can browse on, but the screen is very tiny. so it wasn't like an Android phone. So but then I think my curiosity was sparked then, like how to start off write some codes there. I remember the first time I was seeing some jargons, it was looking very funny, but actually it's not that hard at all. So I think I've been in development. I do a lot of things. So, but I've been in this mobile space in that was around 2016. Yeah, I think from 2016 that was when I actually started. 2015 actually. 2015 that was the first time I started like mobile. I've been into some gaming stuff then, but before I now came into the mobile space, it was actually 2015. I first looked into some things. So yeah, it's been a long time. So I'm going to go through design principles like how you design your code, the best principle you need to use, the development frameworks. There's a lot of development frameworks that you can use. Then deployment strategies. How you're going to deploy it to Play Store and also for App Store. So I think the first question is actually okay. Why mobile development? So I think that is actually kind of very easy answer because most time people prefer to use their phone and to do a lot of things. So you have a lot of advantage. So web design, you can do web design. Web design is also good. So, but sometimes when it comes to web, you still have to connect two or three things. Like some laptops do not have like GPS or some biometric everything else. And frameworks gives you access to all these devices and sensors and everything. So I'm going to explore that. Then also um, instant access is always in your pocket. So your phone is always with you. It's not like a laptop you carry around. So always with you and it's very easy to access. And building for mobile, building for mobile actually gives you more access because it gives you more advantage of selling your product because people will prefer to have it mobile first before talking of laptop. Um, at least most application because there are some big applications that you can need to do it on the system, but most I think is actually a very good idea. Prefer that. Um, then I think when it comes to the mobile, it's actually very focused on like let's say for your processor, everything is actually much how do I say it, much developed for the mobile. When it comes to augmented reality, you you prefer use sometimes it depends because when it comes to augmented reality sometimes you might prefer to use AR glasses. So but when it comes to something like on Instagram, face filters, all those augmented reality, actually it's going to be best done with a mobile phones. And then offline functionality, you don't need to access a website through internet. Everything is on your phone. So it depends on how you develop it because on mobile phone you can still have a offline cache. So either use a temporary cache or you use like a database. You can also set up a database on your mobile phone so that when a user comes back, all those data is saved on the memory of the phone. You don't have to access like a website and to to access the app. And then seamless integration with other devices, other gadgets. So like IoT devices is very easy for you to use your phone because your phone has sensors and can easily sync with lots of devices, um, be it wearables, be it camera. So very easy for you to integrate with all that. Um, cost efficient. Everything is done on your mobile phone. You don't have to host it. Yes, definitely you need a backend, but when you're developing for mobile phone, it's not like a necessity that you have to host your application and host your database elsewhere, unless it's a very intensive application, like let's say e-commerce. Definitely, you need to have like an offline. But simple applications like calculator to do this kind of things is on your phone, and you don't need extra cost of hosting your database or your server. So there are lots of apps you can do without having to host it. But if it's something like e-commerce, then definitely I know you have to have like a server somewhere. Okay. So the next I like to discuss about is like understanding the development for mobile. I'm sure everyone understands what mobile development is. Just um, using any frameworks that you want to create softwares um, for smartphones, your tablets, so everything that you can carry around. But I think basically right now, the very popular two platforms that you have for mobile is Android and iOS. There are some Linux there are some Linux um, OS. There are some Linux hardware and phones that you can also get, but most popular ones is mobile and is Android and iOS. So when it comes to mobile, you hear some terms that that might be might be a bit confusing to you. So I think one of them is that sometimes to be like, okay, I want to develop like a native app. So sometimes people will tell you, develop a native app for me, or develop a cross-platform app, or this should be hybrid app or hybrid apps. So basically, all of them still boils down to mobile application, but is different approach for each one. So native is actually when native is the first is how let's put it again. Native is the is it gives you native is the direct access to the mobile phones and the hardwares on the mobile phones. What I mean by that is that for Android developing the Android operating system, they'll give you like a native. They'll give you like the programming language you have to code this in. So, for example, you want to access like a Bluetooth, you will definitely need to use Java. You want to access like biometrics, you also need to use Java. So you need to use Java to access all these things. So when it comes down to the list to the software that runs directly on the mobile phone, that's when it comes to you we normally say it as native apps. So but they're different. I'm sure all of you know about Android and iOS. So when it comes to iOS, you always use Swift. So Swift is a programming language that is majorly used for iOS. iOS also have another programming language which is also called Objective C. But currently, right now, Apple is pushing for Swift because it's much better to develop with Swift in programming language. But when it comes to Android, developing for Android apps, you definitely need to use two programming languages. But the most popular one is Kotlin programming language. So either you use Kotlin programming language for Android or use Java for Android. So basically that's the main access to Android and iOS. To get access to iOS, use Swift. To get access to Android, use Kotlin. But then there's a different layer on top of this. Sometimes people will prefer to have like a cross-platform apps that I don't have to develop for iOS only, or I don't have to develop for Android only. I want to develop for both of them at once. So that's why you now talk about cross-platform apps. So cross-platform app is very similar to native, but what happens is that developing cross-platform apps, um, people build on top of native languages. For iOS, native language for iOS is Swift. For Android, native language for Android is Kotlin. So what happens is that people develop um, their own programming language. They use any programming language and then wrap it around the native languages. So, for example, is Flutter. Flutter, you write it with that, but at the end of everything that you do, you compile it. Um, it compiles it. It's going to generate libraries. It's going to access codes that is running for Swift for iOS, and then it's going to um, compile to code that is running for Android. So I would not like to go deep because for Android, what you're going to get, once compile your code, you'll get a compiled version of Kotlin. So that's the compiled version of Kotlin. That's what that is actually compiling to. So it translates all the code from that to the compiled version of Android. So just how you also understand this core platform talks to the native language for Android and iOS, and then once it talks to them, you don't have to bother yourself in coding for each languages. The cross-platform development frameworks already handles those things to you. I'll talk more on development frameworks later, but this is just to break down for different approaches that you use for developing mobile apps. So I think the last one, sorry, this is a mistake. This should be hybrid apps, not really web apps. Hybrid apps. So for hybrid apps, basically use like web technologies. So like HTML, CSS to write your code. It's actually like a browser based, but those hybrid apps talks to talks to the hardware. It's in the hardware of Android, for example. Hybrid apps is still very similar to it's just exactly what cross-platform is trying to solve. But in this case, you are using web technology for hybrid apps. So use HTML, CSS to write your code, and then at the end, you'll be talking to you'll be talking to the Android hardware, which is something like Bluetooth or the internet, let's say Wi-Fi or or your your fingerprint or any other hardware devices on the mobile apps. So that's basically the approach that you can take. But the best approach, I'll say, is use Kotlin. It depends on your skill. Let's say the number of developers that you have. I've been in a situation where we wrote some program for native Android and iOS, and then at a point because we don't have so much developer and the development process is very slow, we now have to go to cross-platform using currently Flutter right now and using Flutter so that we don't have to. We have more engineers working on one application, and then we have more speed. We are developing for Android and iOS at the same time. So that's just the benefit. So for a small team, it's best to go for cross-platform, but for a large team, sometimes they might have to go with native apps. The reason native is better is that it is the direct access you get to to the Android or iOS hardware. That's direct access, and that means it's more faster running there, running native app. But most time you will not notice how fast it is when it comes to cross-platform, because it's almost this cross-platform apps is almost very the same thing that you get with native, just a bit latency, depending on the development framework that you choose. I also talk about development frameworks that we have. So so what you need, it depends what you need. The skills you need for this is definitely you have to know programming languages. for the platform you are trying to develop for. For iOS, it's going to be for Swift. For Android, it's going to be for with Kotlin. For Flutter, which is called cross-platform development framework, you're going to use that programming language. I didn't mention this. There's also .NET MAUI. You use C Sharp. So, but programming language is a very costly. You have to learn in this case. I've had a situation where someone, because sometimes you will like to just jump into developing mobile application. I've had a situation where I taught some people, like there are about four persons that I've actually taught. When you start with your program, like let's say you're writing code, it's going to be very boring because I'm sure that everyone would just like to see that's the results for what you're writing. So, but I've had like four persons. At the end, we're going through this uh, boring stage of writing suites, Kotlin, and just program languages without some results. Most of them just didn't even get to start programming for mobile apps. So, but I think another skill you need is just to be patient because you need to learn the basics so that once you start a programming language, then it's going to be very easy for you because you have mastered the basic. So the other one is UI UX. So I know not everyone is a designer. So like I said, when I was beginning, I need this talk to be like someone that wants to start a project probably on their own, or you can still get to a company. But let's say you are building a project on your own. UI UX is key. But me myself personally, I don't do UI UX. So two things I do. Either I use AI, so that's another tool that you need these days. Either I use AI um to generate the UI for you, and probably I'll leave you some links that you can just prompt the AI and then to give you UI UX, or you can hire someone that will do UI UX for you. So definitely, this is either you have the skill, or if you don't have it, you don't have any option but to use a tool like AI, or either get get someone to do it for you. So that's another one. Then backend API integration. So you need to understand um, different ways you can communicate to the backend. So I'm not going to talk much about it because I'm not seeing this as a tutorial kind of talk, but it's more about guiding you on how to start your listing. But when you want to develop your app, you need a way. If you want to integrate with the backend, when I say backend, sorry, in case um, if it's confusing, I'm just talking about if you have parts of your code hosted on a server. So, for example, e-commerce application, um, users users accounts they are stored on the server, so you need to integrate with all this with the backend. So that means you have to talk with the backend. So talking with the backend, there are different ways to talk with the backend. Um, but it's definitely going to be through an API, web API call. So web API call is API is application programming interface. I'm just trying to explain this so that I don't leave anyone behind. So API is application programming interface. Um, to communicate to the backend, you need an API an API call to the backend. So either use there are different APIs you can use. Either use REST, or either you use GraphQL, or either you use um, GCRP. I think that is not on the mobile side. You don't use GCRP. But basically, two things that you see most of the time integrating the backend is going to be two. Either it's going to be REST API, or you're using GraphQL. I think there are a lot of them, but these two are very important. So now I think like when I was starting, the first thing I mentioned is you would not like to have a case that you build an application and the end you find out that oh, your application isn't even needed on the market. So the next process when you develop an application is to get an idea that is valid. You can say, "Oh, I want to build the next e-commerce application." So, but you now find out that oh, this doesn't even solve anything. Your users does not even need it, what you're trying to provide. So, my own idea process. So there are different ways that I go about this. So the first one is first of all you have to identify the main stuff that you want. That's first of all you have an idea, but you have to analyze it and see okay if this makes sense in terms of user, like if it's what they need. There was a time I did another application that was a very long time ago, which was um, GPA calculator for universities. And there were some people it was very necessary for them, but when it comes to how much they need it, it's not going to generate you money. It's not. It depends on the features you add to it, but just a GPA calculator, you'll find that it's not going to be a valid idea for selling, if something that will give you money. So it's very important for you to understand before you even start writing your code. Yeah, you have to analyze your competitors, what they are doing wrong, and probably how you can make it better. So then, okay, I think I've talked about this. Just to understand your targeted customers. So I don't. If you can find someone, let's say you have an idea. If you can find those customers that is going to that needs those things, you have to interview them. So if it's a friend, you need to just reach out to those people you are developing with, not like your brother or sister, because probably if you ask them, might tell you it's good. But the people that understand it is your marketers. Like I was doing one e-commerce application. Now the thing I wanted to understand is okay, this is e-commerce application. For example, Conga. People selling in Conga, what are their what are their complaints when it comes to Conga? Like how they even prefer Conga to be better. So once you get that kind of idea, then you know that okay, what you are solving is actually valid because you got it from your direct customers. So very important to ask questions. Any place you can get your customers, then you need to ask them before you now start writing your tool. Then something else that is very important is putting down your ideas into something. So I prefer Notion. There are a lot of things ones you can use. There's Notion, ClickUp, Trello, and other stuff for bring your ideas together and planning your task. So the reason I prefer Notion, it has AI. Also, ClickUp has AI. But currently, I use Notion. So Notion just helps you to write down your task. So like kind of directs your just as you're thinking, you just put down your ideas, write your task down. Notion is it's very important. But then they have a free version, they have a paid version. Me, I use the free version because I've not found a reason to like have like teams and all that. So you need to find where to jot down your ideas and definitely any idea that come down, so you just jot it down to a notepad. So then I'll share this link with you guys. Uh, this link. So this is not from me. I'll just share it here in case you need to look it up. It's just some ideas that I got online. So, sure. Just have some ideas I got online and probably might help you. So just like ideas for app development that you might get ideas from. So That's for that. Then now I think I'm getting to when you're programming your writing your mobile apps. So very important thing is you need to find like a design. Um, you need to organize yourself very well. First of all, you have to like whatever you're building, it has to be very simple and consistent when it comes to your UI UX. So sometimes I've seen apps that make things very complicated. You have this UI there, you have like I'll take example for Apple. I think their own design principle is that everything needs to be simple and very simple, simplicity. That's what they, but not too simple because I think Apple do is too simple. But it just needs to be simple, not so much complex work going around. Then responsive design. I'll show you. Okay, I don't know if I have more time, but mobile when you're developing for mobile, you need to consider your responsive design. I'm going to show some demo using Flutter. So with Flutter, it actually allows you to have a responsive design for um, tabs, for small screens, probably for larger screens. So I'll show this if I have time. I can do that. Then, then the next, the reason I'm not going too deep because I believe I don't know if you guys are. I'm sure you guys must have known about Figma, but I'm just going to talk about that. So some design tools that you need to have. So when you're building an application, like me personally, I don't do Figma. I don't use all this. Like I mentioned before, you need to get someone that you're a designer. If you don't do that, if you don't design, you need to get like a design person to help you on that. So because you might try to um, design your app yourself, like create a UI, you might have like a very bad app that might not make sense to users. So very important. If you can't do UI, you need to get someone to design your UI. I've had like the company. I've had a case where I was designing an app for a company. There was no design. I was just doing it myself. So, but when a design person, UI person came in, things got very simple, like very fast. I don't have to bother myself about UI. So, very important. You need to get your sketches, your UI designs on a design platform like Figma, Sketch, Adobe XD. What's very important, very popular these days is Figma design. So I'll share this link here in case if you don't have access to, if you don't know about Figma, I'll share it. Then, yeah, okay, development framework. So when you're developing your app, like I mentioned before, it depends on what you want to go for. You can decide you want to go for native. You can decide you want to go for cross-platform. You can decide you want to go for hybrid. So each one has a framework that you use to develop for. So basically what I mean by this is that when you're writing your code, you need just like your Word document, like you want to type Word, you want to create a Word document, you use either Microsoft Word or use Google Docs. So just like that, for when you're writing for mobile apps, you need a place where you can write your codes to. So for native, for iOS, you do that with Xcode. Xcode, so Xcode is an application. You write your code on your Xcode. For Android, you use Android Studio. So Android Studio is for Google from Google that you write your Android software. So you just write your code there. So it's just a simple software. It wants to come there. I'll show you. I'm not going to show this. I'm going to show how you do it to VS Code. But when you come to these platforms like Android Studio, you write a code and then you run it and then you see it running there. Therefore, cross-platform, there are a lot of them when it comes to cross-platform, but cross-platform actually comes powers down to different either iOS and Android. So we have Flutter, we have .NET MAUI. I didn't put something here, but I'll just mention it. You have React Native and you have Kotlin multi-platform. So for each one, I think most of these platforms you can use VS Code. Flutter, you can write your Flutter apps using sorry I did not put it here. You write your Flutter apps using VS Code. The same thing with .NET MAUI. Recently, .NET MAUI give access that you can now write your .NET MAUI apps using VS Code, or you can also write it with Visual Studio software. React Native, you can write that with VS Code. Kotlin multi-platform, you can either write it on Android Studio or Android Studio, or you write it with VS Code for Kotlin multi-platform. So that's all for cross-platform. Therefore, hybrid, like I mentioned before, hybrid is just using web technologies. So, sorry, this is the duplication. I think I made a lot of mistakes there. So for hybrid, sorry, Flutter you don't use. Flutter is not hybrid. This is a mistake. But with .NET MAUI, you can. Sorry, this is wrong. Okay, so currently at back of my mind, I know about which is .NET MAUI from Microsoft. Also Cordova is another one that you write using web technology, which is just HTML, CSS. So there are a lot of them for hybrid, but if you prefer web technologies, you can find your way around this. But for .NET MAUI, you don't use CSS and HTML. You actually use C Sharp. But this is Microsoft. Since it's from Microsoft, Microsoft has C Sharp, so you use C Sharp around it to write it was C Sharp combined with HTML and CSS, but definitely in C Sharp. Then, but for Cordova also you use just HTML and CSS to write your mobile apps. So okay, so choosing the right framework for your project. So it depends on what you want. So like I've mentioned this before, if you need something that is very fast, you need you need to write it in a native language, which is Swift for iOS, or you write it with Kotlin for Android. So cross-platform, you can still it's still fast, but it's not compared as native. So if you need something that is very fast for your mobile apps, just use native. But that means you're going to have more developers writing for iOS, writing for Android. But if you have that money, or if you have that money or time, you can write for two of them. But if you don't have that time and money to spend, just use cross-platform. Cross-platform, to be honest, I think it still makes sense. Depends on how fast you need it. Then budget and timeline. Cross-platform is actually very faster to develop with when you're talking about instead of writing on native. So if you need something that is very fast, I can write in both platforms at once. It's cross-platform is the best way to go to. So also familiarity with what you're writing. So it depends on if you prefer web technologies, then you go for hybrid. If you prefer if you know Swift, you go with Xcode Swift to write to iOS, Kotlin for Android, or Dart for Flutter. So it depends on what you're familiar with. Depends on either you choose performance or what you're familiar with. Then your target audience, if you are doing native, which means you are developing for one platform per software, that means you have to just prioritize where you're going to go with. Either you want it to be on Android, iOS, or you can just take your time and develop for both. Um, I think that's going to be it. So then, very important stuff when it comes to developing your mobile apps is the architecture that you use. So I don't know how many of you are into programming that much, but just like other development programming languages or other frameworks I use, when it comes to mobile, use you need to know like the architecture that you're going to work with. So currently there are a lot of them. Like you have MVC, model view controller, MVVM, model view model. I'm going to show a demo using MVVM because it's a very simple one. So I created like a very simple sample just to show you this. So, but MVVM is something you can try. You can use. It's very simple. But when you're talking of a very large project, like let's say a very big project like e-commerce project, like something that you know that a lot of people will be working with, I'll recommend use clean architecture because clean architecture tries to separate everything for you. Like um, everything's. Let's say I have like a very big project. If I'm working on one particular part of the project, I'll know that this is my focus. And anytime that I need a change, I just go to that point and change it. Um, Clean architecture just tries to split everything into multiple files. So one problem about clean architecture is that it allows you to write so many codes for your project. So, but if it's very is it depends on what you want. If you're working in a large project, then you don't have to bother about all the files you have to write. Just write like a simple hello world. You have to create a lot of files, write a lot of things. Just write a simple hello world program. But when your program skills, you found that clean architecture is actually much better than a lot of all these things. So, but it depends on how large is the project. That's where you now decide that you're going with this one. Then, but all of them has like a design principle that you have to obey you have to obey. So I'm just going to show you MVVM. I'm not going to show everything, just MVVM. That's what I'm going to show. Then we have model view presenter. So it's another architectural pattern that you can also use. So when you hear model, it's just your mostly your data, how you structure your data. View is your view. View is just what you're seeing on the screen, like your buttons and everything. And then controller is just for this MVC, controller is just mostly your business logic. Like, okay, I want to buy this. Want to add a product to my cart. So the main functionality is going to be our controller. So, but the rest is just abstracted out. So the same thing with this one. Model is just mostly your data. View is still your buttons and everything you see on the screen. View model is actually combination of your model and your view, basically binding them together just to have an interactivity so that when you click on the button, it interacts with your view, interacts with your data, and then probably make an API call and all that. So basically, that just what this is about, just how you structure your code so that it will be more organized, so you're not scattering your code around, so that when next someone comes to your project, they understand that okay, you're using MVVM. And when they come to your app, they'll be like, okay, you understand you're using MVVM. That means your models are here.
Sorry, Francis. I think can hear you again. Are you still there?
For Flutter and some .NET MAUI and a lot of other frameworks I want frameworks we want to use VS Code, Xcode for iOS, VS Code for .NET MAUI, Flutter, and a lot of them. Then then when you're writing when you're writing a code, definitely you need a way to manage your code. Um, so what I mean by this is that if I want, let's say I want to save my, first of all, version control helps you with managing the changes that you made to your code. So in this case, it helps you to, let's say I want to revert back to a particular version of what I wrote before, I can still revert back. But it also helps you to work with a larger team. So what currently I'm going to explain just Git in this case. So Git is a version control that I use. Now I said and GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket. Um, I think Bitbucket uses other version control. But I think most popular version control use is Git, and then but the GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket they help you save. Let me just say, host your repository to a remote network, a remote server, and then once you host it to a remote server, then Git will help you to manage changes that you make to the repository. So what this thing helps you with is when you have a large person working on your code. Let's say you have like 10 developers working on your code. Um, Git will help you using Git's version control. It helps you manage the changes that everyone makes, so that I change a file here, someone else changes a file here. We can easily combine this code. We can easily merge the changes that we have done and bundle it as a single software. So basically, just helping you to manage your the code that you have written, and also helps you to store it in a remote repository. So like not on your system, but you host it outside your system so that you don't have to have all the codes on your system, but you have to host it outside. So, but I'm not going to talk more on this because of the time. Sorry, this is no version control. I meant to use AI here. So the reason I just put this is because AI is actually to me. I don't write anything without AI. Currently, I have two plugins on my development platform. So I have Codium, I have GitHub Copilot. So these two things I use it hand in hand. So as I'm writing my code, it's assisting me to complete what I'm doing. So I'm just putting these two things for you guys, so that you see. I don't know if you are used to it, but Codium is actually free. They have the paid version, but I'm using the free version, and it's actually very good. It's okay for me. GitHub just currently made their AI Copilot free, but not completely free actually. But I think like probably uh, I don't know how many prompts you give it to, but it has a limited prompts you can give the AI before you run out of your free version. So, but I use these two things to write my code. So very important. So even there's a project I'm actually working on right now. And what I do is that um, I don't know much about that platform, which is Blazor. So I just ask lots of questions to AI. So actually very helpful in that process. So because of time, I'm just going to scan through this very fast. Um, so when you're developing your platforms there are different places you can host it to. Um, there's an Apple Store. Apple Store is just for iOS, your iPhone. That's where you host it. But I'm very sure everyone is very concerned with all this. Google Play Store, you're hosting a Google Play Store. Windows Store, you're hosting a Google Play Store. So, but each one has their own pricing that you have to pay. So Apple do their own on monthly on yearly basis. If you're a company, is actually going to be a little bit the fee is going to be higher. But for individual user is a bit lower. I think for individual is $99. For company, I think 100 and something dollar. So for Google Play Store, it's just a one-time fee. I think when I did mine, it was I think it was something dollar. I don't know how much it is right now. Windows Store is actually the cheapest, and is also a one-time fee, something that you do. So, but this is a whole lot process, so I'm not going to go through all this. So, but just to put it out there, you can do that. The reason I put Windows Store here is because for Flutter, for example, remember Flutter is a cross-platform app development framework, and um, cross-platform development, and you can deploy to Windows at the same time. Um, Okay. So that's the reason I put Windows Store, because for cross-platform it allows you to put it on Windows Store. So, oh, okay. Since I have 5 more minutes, let me just demo something before we leave. This. Okay, so just a very simple something I created. So I hope you guys can see my screen.
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay. Currently, I'm building right now, but before it finishes, I'll just go fast track this. Um, so first, I'm showing this for a Flutter application when you want to use develop your mobile app using Flutter application. So just a very simple one. Just going to scan through the folder structure. So currently for Flutter, this is what you get. Um, you get your platforms for individual platforms. You see it here. So currently, what you see here, we have an Android folder. For iOS, we have an iOS folder. For Linux, you have a Linux folder. For macOS, you have a macOS folder. Web, and also Windows. So for each one, you have to set it up individually. But for a very simple application, you don't even need to touch it. But at some point, you have to do some things if you want to make some changes. Then a very important one that you need to know is this folder called lib. This lib folder. This is where mostly you store your code. Not necessarily, but mostly this is where you store your code. Now in the lib folder, directly under the lib folder, you're going to see your main.dat. Remember, I mentioned Flutter uses
So we
that
can't see
programming
your screen
language.
again.
Okay, so can you see now?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
Yes.
So for Flutter, what is the first entry point for your application is this point, this file called main.dat. So in main.dat, you will see this. You see, I'm not going to talk more because I have just 5 minutes. You see this thing called, this is a function. It's called main. Inside here, you see something called run app. So run app, anything you supply here, and that's what is going to be supplied to your application. Where's my this thing? Application. So this point, run app, run. This is the app that I told to run. I'm going to run it. Now this thing, what you're seeing here is everything you see on the screen. Since it's the entry point, Now this is where I declared what the app is going to look like. So when it comes to Flutter, everything is widgets. So there are two different widgets you have, either is stateless or stateful widgets. So, but if I tell you what these two widgets is, it might be confusing. But just know that stateless does not have states. Stateful widgets have states. Um, but I'm using stateless widgets to define this in my application. Now, if you look under here, you see that what I have here is the just a wrapper. I call the material app. So everything must be wrapped with the material app. Since it's an application, you are wrapped with material app. Now, not to go too deep. Now, I want to show you something I mentioned. Remember, I said something about when you are building your application, you need to find this a pattern you need to use, your architectural pattern. So currently on this project, I'm using MVVM. So just looking under here, you see I have models, view models, and views. So models, I mentioned models holds your data. Currently, what we have here is just two data that is holding, which is title and is completed. If the task is completed, that's what the data is holding. Now, for view models, this is actually what your business logic is, which is just going to be what you want your app to do, what you want this particular action to do. Now, currently, I have add task, toggle task completion, either it's completed or not, or remove the task. This is just the two business logic I have on my app. Now, everything gets wired up into my views. Remember, I told you views are just what you see on screen. Views is the buttons or UI elements. That's what the views is. Now, I'm not going to go through it deep, but on your view, you have to make a reference to your view model. Your view model talks to your model, while your view talks with your view talks to your view model. Now here I made a reference to the view model, and I just built a very simple thing just to hold my um this is my title. Use text to just find your title, which is task tracker. Then here I have very simple entry, which I call text field. This is where you enter your text, and then here I have like a button, which is this plus button to add your task. So currently, if I just say task one, task one, click on the plus, it adds it here. So what this button does is it calls add task, and add task just adds it to a list of this value notifier. So basically, that's just what you have for Flutter. Just define how your app is. Just use a architecture pattern, just like I've done. But MVVM mostly, I'll say, is for simple applications. So now I've wired all these things up. Now I need to show my view. This is my view. I need to show it somewhere. So I decided that for my app, I want the home, which is the entry point, to just be my view. Remember, view holds your logic, your view model, and everything. Just once I put it as a home for material app, then it takes the view. Now, this everything you're seeing here from this point down is this. I'm sorry, from here, from this point down is what is inside my tracker view. So basically, that is just very simple stuff that I just did here. So you can delete or you can add anywhere. So there's a lot of things to learn, but for the time I have, I can't actually go through everything. Now, just the last part of it is where you wire up some dependencies. So if you want to, I don't know, if you want to add, like, let's say, external libraries, I want like a camera, or I want to add like an AI feature, like let's say TensorFlow library. I just come on that prospect and then add it up to my dependencies. My assets, if I want to set up a font, under my fonts, I set it up. This is just what you kind of wireframe. Just like your manifest, you wireframe your app, how it's going to the things that it's going to need, what it's going to use, and all that. That's what the app popspec.yaml does. So let's go to deep because of time. Let me just go to the last part of it. So I hope this is the last part. Yeah, this is the last part. So monetization. So I would like to talk this more on this because I think after creating your app, you need to monetize it. So I'll just tell you my own story, how I've learned the strategy to use. So from my own perspective, what I've noticed is that um, for apps that you know that, let's say I know that this app, I'm building this app, and know that this app that I'm building, people are not going to use it much. Maybe it's just like a 30 seconds and then I drop it off. Then that kind of app is best to use do a pay before download because you not get money from it. You not get money if you decide that you want to show ads on there because 30 seconds, how many ads are you going to even get from users? So, but apps that you know that, okay, people might be using it, for example, Facebook, TikTok, not people uses frequently. These ones, ads will be very, can help a lot here to, um, ads can help a lot here. I don't know if you understand why I talk about ads. It's just like showing ads to using something like AdMob or they love them. So, but currently, I think most people are is AdMob. So, using something like AdMob to show users ads on your application. So, if you are a ad let's say you allow people to show ads on your app, Google is going to pay you for showing ads on your app. So, like I mentioned, apps that allow people to show stay longer, that's a kind of monetization would make sense. But then for apps that you know that these people will not spend time on it, just make it a pay before you now use the app. So you can use in-app purchases. In-app purchases you can use depending on how you want to monetize, make the payments with. You can use in-app purchases or you can use subscriptions. So, but I just mentioned just very short one, which is ads, and also the second one is either you make it pay before the person uses it. Now, yeah, basically that's it. Then a very important one is user feedback. So if the way I've done mine personally is I use Google Forms just to get feedback from users because sometimes you might not know that users are having issues, but if you get that feedback um, interface for users, they'll let you know that I needed this thing, but it's not here. So feedback is very important to help um, your application to progress. Because some people might just dump it if you don't show that. But if they see, I can tell the developer that this is what I need, then this is actually very important. Or you can add like a support link or something like that. Yeah. So basically, that is it. So any questions you can ask from now.
Wait, so one at a time. We're just going to take one question. So if you have a question, you can share. Um, then we just go. Hey, thank you very much, Francis. Funny enough, we've been friends since 2015. Yeah, when he was all this stuff, worked on projects together, and yeah,
Sorry,
he's very.
sorry. Okay, sorry. I didn't hear what you said. Sorry.
I said anybody who has questions can share, um, can ask now if you have, but we'll just be taking one question. I say thank you very much for for taking us through. I know you couldn't cover a lot. Like mobile development is quite a lot, and the best way to do is just to start learning. Um, all this stuff. I think one of the important things he shared was like version control, especially if you're building an application, like especially if you're working with people, you're trying to like. I think it's also good, especially if you want to store like what you've done, maybe come back to it later. You're using different devices. You need to know how to use the version control, especially if you want to go back to former versions of any application you're making. So we have a course on Doom Academy that's about version control. It's a free course. You don't have to pay to enroll in the course. It's completely free. It's about Git and GitHub, introduction to Git and GitHub for development. It's completely free course. You can just enroll and just get started. It has like a couple of modules, and yeah, once you're done, you at least be equipped with all you need to know to be able to be work effective with Git and GitHub, because most teams use Git and GitHub for their development process. So most companies around the world, from Fortune 500 to even small startups, they use Git and GitHub. So it's a very essential skill you need to know how to learn, know how to use, need to learn to use. So thank you very much, Francis. For this segment. I think with more time and time, we'll have like a full blown mobile course. I think, and might even have Francis featured to like be the tutor for it. Well, I'll see. I'll talk with him. Normally, Francis doesn't really have time and all this stuff, but I'll see how we can get it done. But thank you very much for your time. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming to like really let us know about mobile development. It's really a privilege. And thanks everyone for joining the class. Oh, Francis, I dropped up. Thanks everyone for joining the class today. I hope you guys have a great one. Have a nice day. Next 2 weeks we're going to have a very interesting class on prompt engineering. You see all these apps now that are using AI. And so we're going to have a very prolific prompt engineer coming to come and teach us about prompt engineering. He has made a lot of AI projects that use AI in their work underneath this thing to automate processes or to like personalize the experience for users. So we're going to teach you about prompt engineering. So yeah, Francis, do you have any closing remark?
Okay, yeah. Okay, nothing much, but I think I've mentioned everything I wanted to say. But like I mentioned before, if you want to do something like the mobile development, it's actually very easy. It's not like a rocket science. Like I mentioned before, I think before I started, it was looking like a rocket science to me. But once you get into it, it's actually very easy. You just have to dedicate yourself. I've had some people that have thoughts, but I think one of the problem I notice is if you don't, if you always wait for someone to teach you, probably don't go out to look for resources. You might drop it. You might drop it. It's very likely that you drop it. But I think my own opinion is just go for resources, look for resources that will help you develop, advance your skills. But it's actually very easy to get into mobile developer. It's not like a rocket science something. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you everyone for being a part of this class. Yeah, so the recording for this class will be available just in case